Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Iain MacIntyre joins us now. It is Monday, so a reminder that on Monday, all of our guests are sponsored by Basant. We got music here? No? All of our guests are brought to you by Basant Motors. That includes Iain MacIntyre. It's the New Year, new ride event at Basant Motors. Looking to upgrade your ride? She's a sweet ride. Oh, another Seinfeld reference, which Rick doesn't get. Check out the deals at Basant Motors. Learn more at Basant Motors, BASANT Motors.com. Joined now by Iain MacIntyre, Sportsnet, Sportsnet.ca. Canucks hosting Buffalo Tuesday after that 3-2 win over Edmonton on Saturday. I can't imagine how busy you've been, Iain. How are you?
I'm doing well. Sweet ride, huh?
Yeah. Hopefully you're.
I'm glad you think
Seinfeld.
I'm glad you think I'm. Yes, I'm familiar with Seinfeld, a television show. You have to explain to the kids nowadays.
Well, I have to explain it to Rick too. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, he's so absorbed in covering the hockey team, he has no time for anything else.
There you go.
Like television. Leisure time, not for Rick Dollywall.
Well, for 2 hours every weekday, I hope he's absorbed into television. So there's that as well. Hey, Iain, what do you believe when it comes to JT Miller's status going into Saturday's game? Yesterday, missing Dyson Ice, and even now.
Yeah, well, has there been anybody who's been traded more often than JT Miller in the history of the Vancouver Canucks? I mean, if you think about it, you go back to the trade deadline on his old contract, he was supposed to be traded, and then that draft, he was supposed to be traded. And even after he signed the extension, but he had a year to go before it kicked in, there were lots of reports that JT Miller was being shopped. But I have to say that this does feel different. I know, Rick, you've done some reporting on it. Of course, our friend Elliot Friedman with the big news on Saturday. There is a different tone about this. And I can tell you that in the past, when I have talked to JT about these stories, he's been largely dismissive. And he was not dismissive on Saturday. And I think what you need to remember as well is because he's got the no movement clause, he's involved. Like, he didn't seem like a guy who was stunned by what we were talking to him about on Saturday, nor did he try to say, well, I don't go on social media. I'm not, you guys probably know more than I do, which is occasionally a defense for the players, but everyone was aware of it on Saturday, including JT Miller. So there's a lot of substance to this. Where it goes, is he going to be a New York Ranger today? Is he going to be a Vancouver Canuck tomorrow? I can't tell you that, but obviously there's a lot to this story. This is different than in the past.
So all things considered, what did you think of JT Miller's strong performance on Saturday, Iain?
Oh, magnificent. I mean, this guy is a big game player. I mean, we've seen it time and again. I'd have been surprised, actually, had he not had a great game against Edmonton. You look at what he did for the Canucks in the playoffs after a 103-point season. You look at how prominent he was in that playoff series against Edmonton. This is just how he is. And it's partly when you see a game like that, you know, I think as if you're a fan of the Canucks, it kind of just makes you sad. Like, why can't this work out? Why can't this franchise have nice things? Why can't we have both JT Miller and Elias Pettersson? Because they're both great players. JT has been the more proven player in these big games and in physical games and in these matchup roles. So I think that's a question going forward. There's going to be a lot of questions going forward if, in fact, Miller is traded, or for that matter, if Pettersson is. But it sure seems like for now they've kind of decided that Miller is the better option for them if they're going to trade one. But man, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Elias Pettersson if JT Miller leaves.
Well, Iain, I was just going to ask you about Pettersson. Last 5 games, 1 point. Last 3 games, no points. He's on pace, I think, for 55 points at $11.6 million in this city, and that's just not good enough. What's he got to do to pick it up? Like, what are you seeing? Like, he's not being a difference maker.
No, and here's here's what I saw. A week ago on Saturday, he was about the best player on the ice in Toronto. Mm-hmm. He had a fantastic game, mostly going up head-to-head against Austin Matthews, to the point where Craig Berube changed his lines in the third period because it wasn't going well for Matthews that night. And at the end, all that Pettersson had from that game was a second assist, but he was still one of the best players on the ice. And then the 2 games after that, you don't notice them. And they were bad games for the Canucks. Pettersson wasn't the only guy you didn't notice, in those games against Winnipeg and Los Angeles. But I think there's a level of frustration within the organization. And even GM Patrick Allvin, when he spoke to me after Christmas, he talked about, Pettersson's preparation. And, I think he means his mental preparation, but in understanding how hard it is to get to the next level, but also physical preparation in trying to get to the next level. And lots of great players. Sedins are fantastic examples of it, how they had to change well into their careers to get to that next level. I think the Canucks, everyone involved, and even people outside the organization who are close to Elias, I think everybody is kind of pushing for this next level. And certainly that's what the Canucks expected when they signed this $92.8 million contract. But this is now 11 months.
Yeah.
If you go back to when Elias first started to struggle, it was mid-February of last year, once the intensity of these negotiations ratcheted up. Well, this is 11 months now, and the Canucks are still waiting. We know he's an incredible talent, right? 102 points a couple of years ago, just been a terrific offensive player for the Canucks for the most part since he got here. But they need a lot more, and they're paying for more too.
Really good article about Brock Boeser the other day. Ian, we're coming down to the wire with Boeser. I think he's 6 weeks to the trade deadline. No deal. They haven't talked in a long time. Ian, I think the last time they talked with Boeser's representatives may have been in early December. What's going on there? Are they going to move this guy?
Well, it's certainly trending that way. I mean, the organization has basically said they need to make a decision before the trade deadline. They're not, no matter how much a team wants to keep a player for a playoff run, no one is really in a position anymore in the NHL to squander a prime asset. And so if he's not going to be a Canuck, I think they're going to look at trading him. It's incredible how quiet not just the negotiations have been, but this story has been. I mean, this should be a huge story in our market. Brock Boeser, the longest tenured player on the Canucks, he's coming off a 40-goal season. You think that would be a massive story, but there's been so much more drama. Sorry about my phone jiggling around here.
It's okay.
There's been so much more drama that has eclipsed it. And obviously a JT Miller trade is going to, for now, eclipse that. But this is a massive story. And I know that Brock badly wants to stay. Yeah. He wants to play his career here. But, like a lot of guys, he's probably needed to be a little bit better. I don't think he's helped himself a lot. I feel badly for him because I really think he was off to a good start before he had that concussion. I mean, he had 6 goals in 11 games, and it was a point a game, and was playing that solid 200-foot game that he has, learned to play with the Canucks. And then he, gets blindsided by Jeannot. He misses 7 games, and then it takes him about at least that long to get going again. And other than that one 4-game scoring spree right after Christmas where he had 6 goals, he just hasn't made the impact that I think he wants to make. He's such a good person, and he's such a good pro. And I think as well, when there's these stories about the dressing room culture and who gets along with whom, and Brock Boeser is one of those guys everybody loves, and Boeser is close and liked by everybody. He seems like a guy that would have added value for that, the chemistry and the group, but it's such a bottom line business now. And especially if, it's one thing to carry someone at, 2.5 or 3 million because you want them in the room, but it's tough to do that for somebody at 8 million or 7.5 or 8.5 or whatever Brock is eventually going to sign for. So, I mean, he's got a little bit to go before the Four Nations break, a little bit to go after that before the trade deadline. But right now, it's hard to envision that he's going to remain a Canuck. And I hate to say that. I'd love to see him stay, but right now it doesn't look like it's going that way.
And quickly, Ian, if you don't mind, we're still waiting word from the NHL head office, Department of Player Safety. Any idea what a fair penalty would be for Connor McDavid and Tyler Myers?
Yeah, I would think a couple of games each. I know some people are saying one game apiece, and then they're back at it Thursday in Edmonton. Yeah. But, I mean, you can't let either one of those infractions go. And the great thing, and I think we all have at times, we've been critical of officiating. And I know in Edmonton, they're outraged at what we're witnessing now. But that was a punch by McDavid on the back of Garland's head. And let's not forget, McDavid got away with a high stick on Philip Roenick and probably a trip on Quinn Hughes earlier in the game. So he gets some leeway. But I'll say this now, with the change in officiating that allows these reviews at the time by the in-game officials, they don't get these match penalty calls wrong very often. And when you're calling a match penalty, it's going to be a suspension. And I think a couple of games each is fair. I'm glad that neither victim was injured. Connor Garland talking to us after the game, and I saw Evan Bouchard was out doing the post-game workout with all his teammates on the floor of the hallway outside the Oilers dressing room. So I'm glad they're okay, and that's why I think maybe it won't be more serious, but I'd think a couple of games apiece. I would think whatever they are, they're going to be matching suspensions.
Yeah. Garland was talking with Draisaitl right after the incident, as a matter of fact, for a lengthy amount of time.
Yeah.
It was like a lecture.
Is that the toughest 5'8" guy that you've ever seen?
I love
he gets smashed on the side of the head. He didn't even go down.
Yeah. I love watching him play.
Love his passion.
And speaking about loving things, Ian, we just have to say this, that during that road trip, the job you did, you always do a fine job.
But wonderful.
The articles you came out with on the most recent Canuck road trip were just fabulous.
A wily veteran.
Sportsnet.ca. We could learn a lesson from that. Just fabulous.
Well, I owe it to my bosses who invest in still covering the team and think it's important. And it helps that I've been around a while. I think, there's a level of trust there, but I'm glad that the guys I talked to were willing to talk to me.
Yeah, in particular, Patrick Alvin. And you know what, Ian, we should be paying you because it did provide us with a lot of material. So we appreciate it.
I'm going to remember that. Can you get Ryan to just clip that? We should be paying you.
You know what? As I was saying
we'll circle back on this.
As I was saying that, I'm thinking to myself in the back of my head, why am I saying this? I'm giving him fodder. Thanks for this, Ian.
All right, guys. Okay. Nice being on as always.
You bet.